These are the 9 games that proved even historic dominance has limits. In 2015-16, the Golden State Warriors didn't just break NBA records, they shattered them, finishing with a 73-9 regular season record, the best in basketball history at that time. But here's what makes that season so fascinating looking back. It's not the 73 wins we remember, it's the 9 losses that followed them around like a shadow, a reminder that perfection, even when you're breaking records, is still impossibly out of reach. For a team that redefined what basketball could be, for a team that had fans and opponents questioning whether anyone could ever beat them again, those 9 losses tell a story that's way more complicated than they just lost 9 games. These weren't losses in the traditional sense. They were moments of vulnerability, games where you could see the pressure, where you could see the fatigue, and where you could see that even the most dominant team in NBA history couldn't quite escape the reality of an 82-game season. The Milwaukee Bucks arrived on November 25th, 2015. Before we talk about this loss, we need to understand what the Warriors had just accomplished. They'd won 24 consecutive games to start the 2015-16 season. But that wasn't just a 2015-16 thing. This was actually their 28th consecutive win if you stretched it back to the end of the previous season. 28 wins in a row. In today's NBA landscape, where teams are designed to match up with other elite teams, where load management is a conversation, where everyone's talking about rest, 28 consecutive wins feels almost impossible. Fast forward just a few weeks to December 30th, the Warriors played without Steph Curry because of a leg bruise. There was legitimate uncertainty about whether Golden State could fill that void. Curry was averaging 30 points a game at that point in the season. How do you replace that kind of production? You try, and sometimes you fail. The Dallas Mavericks came into the Bay Area and they dominated. They led by 18 at halftime. At one point, they were up by 30 points. 30 points. That's the kind of deficit that usually doesn't get erased in the NBA. The Warriors had 5 guys in double figures, and it still wasn't enough. The Mavericks walked away with the win, and the Warriors fell to 29-2. Here's where it gets interesting though. The Warriors didn't start falling apart. They didn't go into some sort of death spiral. They kept winning. But then came April. April is when things got real. April is when the season is finishing, when you can see the end of the regular season in sight, and when every team is starting to think about the playoffs. On April 1st, 2016, the Boston Celtics came to Golden State's home arena, Oracle. When you're winning at home at a historic rate, when you've won 54 consecutive games at your own building, home doesn't feel like the place where you're vulnerable. Home feels like a fortress. Warriors fans were visibly stunned. Warriors fans had gotten so accustomed to winning there that a loss seemed almost impossible. But the Celtics took that fortress, won 109-106, and snapped the 54-game home winning streak. How do you even process losing at home when you've gotten used to always winning? 4 days later, on April 5th, the Minnesota Timberwolves finished off the regular season with another loss for the Warriors. And just like that, the Warriors' record was complete, 73-9. What's wild about analyzing these 9 losses, and this is what really sticks with you when you look back 10 years later, is that the Warriors lost to some of the worst to average teams in the league. These weren't losses to the top-tier championship contenders. These weren't losses to teams that finished with the best records. These were losses to teams that, frankly, shouldn't have been able to beat a Warriors squad this good, and yet they did. Because that's the thing about basketball. That's the thing about sports in general. On any given night, if you're not perfect, if you're tired, if you're dealing with injuries or fatigue or just an off night, someone's gonna come in and take the win. The Warriors had this remarkable streak where they never lost back-to-back games all season. Think about that. 82 games, 9 losses, and the wins bounced right back every single time. That's not a statistical anomaly you see often. That's a team that refused to let one loss become 2. That's a team with championship mentality, even in the losses. For most of the season, that's exactly what the Warriors did. They lost a game, and then they came back and won the next one. They lost to Dallas without Curry, but they kept winning. They lost to Milwaukee, but then they kept the streak alive for weeks after that. They were unstoppable in a way that, looking back, we might not have fully appreciated at the time. But here's where the story gets complicated. Here's where 73-9 becomes a tragedy instead of a triumph. Those 9 losses in the regular season, they foreshadowed something. The Warriors went into the playoffs as the overwhelming favorite. They had the best regular season record in NBA history. They had broken over 25 NBA records. They had this mystique that nobody could touch them. And then the playoffs happened. The Warriors eventually lost in the NBA Finals to LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had a 3-1 lead and they blew it. They became the first team in NBA history to lose a 3-1 lead in the finals. They squandered the opportunity. In Game 7 on June 19th, 2016, they lost 93-89, and that championship that was supposed to be inevitable just vanished. Because here's what 2015 to 16 teaches us. Looking back 10 years later, winning records are amazing. Historical seasons are incredible achievements, but basketball is a game where there are no guarantees, where any team can beat any other team on any given night, and where 9 losses in a regular season can feel small until they suddenly feel enormous. The Warriors learned that lesson in the worst possible way.